and we're ready to go.
Hello, everybody. Like Mellanie said, I'm Jason Platt. I do own and run 3P Rabbitry here in Bastrop. What we're going to show you this evening is a few pieces of equipment that you'll need to start with when you start your rabbit project. If you're, shall we say, an advanced youth breeder, you probably already know most of this, but you'll see some equipment and some ideas, some things that I do a little different than a lot of people that really work well for me. So I guess to start, where do we start? Okay, probably on cages. Before you get your rabbits, I know in Lee County you have to raise your own. In Bastrop County, you can raise your own or buy your rabbits. Before you get started, and you have several months to plan, you need to look into your cages. The cages that I have here, I'll show them these cages. So these are a hanging type cage. These are 24 inches by 24 inches, and they're lined up. My barn is a little bigger. I'll get out of the way and I'll only show you this one barn. Everything is tied together. But these can become, you can get these in 2 cage compartments or 3 cage compartments. But this is the style cage you need to have. Now, if you're going to keep your rabbits in a building or barn, this is what you ought to have, where the manure and all the urine, spilt water, everything can go to the ground. If you're keeping them in your garage, then I would suggest a stacker cage, which I do not have here. But a stacker cage will be just like these cages here on the end. And then there'll be a separate compartment on top of them. There'll be a divider with a tray underneath them, both top and bottom. And those are very good to have if you have a small space for you to keep your rabbits. Cages, you can get your cages from several different places. The closest place will probably be me. I am a dealer for KW Cages, so if you need cages, you can get my information from Mellanie. There's Texas Custom Cages down in Bowling, Texas. There's Cornerstone Cages, which has just been sold to a man down in Sinton, Texas, down by Corpus Christi. These are the best cage makers probably in the state. Another man named Harold Barrington in Waco also builds very good cages. And I will get Mellanie all that info on all of them. Plan ahead. Raising rabbits is planning ahead. I have a lot of people that come here. I am a meat pen breeder that show up and say, well, we're picking our cages up on the way home. That's not very good planning. So the cages that you'll find like at Tractor Supply, the wire is very thin. These rabbits can get up to 5 pounds on a meat pen, 5.5 pounds. They're going to get pretty heavy. That wire is very thin, and it will cut the pad on the foot of the rabbit on the back of the hock, and you will have sore hocks on a young animal. A sore hocked animal, of course, it's like us walking on this wire. We're going to get sore feet, and it's going to hurt. So we try to look out for our rabbits the best we can for their safety and for their health. The next thing to do would be to have a carrying cage. This is one of my carriers here. They do make them with 3 compartments like this, or a big 2, or even a big single cage. As long as you have a carrying cage that has a tray on the bottom and a wire bottom on the floor. A lot of people, I've seen it at a lot of shows, they will come up with pet taxis, like people carry cats and small dogs to the veterinary clinic with. These are not ideal for rabbits. Rabbits, once you get them, you will understand. They like to urinate and poop a lot, and they will get all that in a pet taxi. It gets on their fur, and when you get to the show and the judge turns that rabbit over, or puts it next to them to check on for disqualifications. Next thing you know, he's got urine all over him, and the judge is not going to be very happy. So a carrier like this is most desirable. Always one with a tray. That way, when you're in the back of mom's car, they don't pee in the car. That will save you a good chewing from mom and dad. So anyway, this is the type of carrier that you need. It doesn't necessarily have to be this small. It can only be half this size. But you need to try to find a carrier with a tray on the bottom and a wire floor. Always put wood shavings. And you can see in the bottom of this one, it has wood shavings in it. It's ready to go. The wood shavings helps from that urine not splashing back on the rabbits. That way, when you get your rabbits going to the show, they're as clean as possible. Other things that you'll need will be, and you'll notice on my cages, we have these J feeders. These fit onto the outside of the cage. You cut a hole in the wire. Anyway, cut a hole in the wire. That way you can insert these cages in from the outside. They just clip over the wire and your feeder is mounted. I like these feeders more than a bowl. When you get your rabbits, you'll notice these babies like to climb on everything. They're kind of like a goat when they're babies. They'll crawl in a food bowl. If you feed in a bowl like so, they crawl on top of it. They're going to leave manure and urine all in the feed. If you have that, then they're not going to eat the feed, then they're not growing. Okay, so, and then you're pouring it out, wasting a lot of feed. So anyway, the J feeders, these are the type of feeders that I really like to use. I use them in both of my barns. They're the best way to feed these rabbits. Watering, you'll notice on the cages that I have an automatic watering system. We just have too many cages to water with bowls or bottles. I brought this bowl out. This is a ceramic, kind of like a ceramic brick made bowl. It's been fire glazed with a gloss. Nothing can penetrate into it. It'll hold water. It'll hold feed. Even though if you can't get these feeders and you have to use bowls, you know what to look for. But you can also use these bowls to water with. Do not have a water bottle around, but everybody knows what a water bottle looks like. We've all seen them at the feed stores or at Tractor Supply. Some of the other items that I do have are coop cups. These fit in the carrying cages. If you have to travel far and you're using a breeder that's far from your home, put a coop cup. They mount very easy. You just slide them in from the inside, put the clip on, and now you have an instant water dish for the trip for your rabbits to get back to your home. So if you're using a breeder from far away, make sure you can water these rabbits also for the trip. If you're going close within an hour or so, they're going to be fine. You won't need to water. Okay. For those of y'all in Lee County that have to raise your own rabbits, you raise your breeders year round. Everything else applies. Y'all probably know what these are. If you've not seen what this is a plastic foot pad. Excuse me. These fit on the floor of the cage. To help prevent, good Lord, to help prevent sore hocks on your rabbits. Put them in one area of the cage, fasten them down. Those rabbits will sit on these. It helps ease. It's a little softer feel than putting their feet on this wire. Okay. Breeder rabbits also a lot of people come to the shows. I judge quite a few of these county fairs. We end up disqualifying a lot of rabbits with ear mites. Best thing I've ever found for ear mites is Ivomec Pour-On. It's a cattle wormer. You can get it at any feed store, Tractor Supply. This is the generic brand of ivermectin Pour-On. What I do is I pour it in a little spray bottle that you can get at Walmart and just give them 2 pumps in each ear. That's equivalent to 2 drops. That's all they need. That will help keep you from having ear mites. Do that when you wean the bunnies, and then about 2 weeks before the show, do them again, just as an extra precaution to not have ear mites. Also on the breeders in Lee County, or anybody that's showing breeder rabbits, this medication here is called Blue Coat. If you have a rabbit with sore hocks where they're bleeding on the back of that hock, turn them over, put some of this. This is very good medication for breeders and for sore hocks. A lot of people, instead of a foot pad like I showed you, will use a slab cut about the same size, about 12 by 15 of sheetrock. Just something for those rabbits to set on to not get them on that wire. It will help their feet heal a little faster. One thing that I do with my rabbits before they leave is we're in my small barn, and this is kind of my staging area. When Mellanie showed you the majority of this barn, this is where I stage all the rabbits for everybody to come pick up. What we do in here, I give them a medication called Marquis. It is a coccidiosis preventative, and then we put them on probiotics. The probiotic I use is made by Row Nutrition out of Ohio, and I'll let you get close so people can see it. This is the best powdered probiotic in the world. It's for rabbits, made specifically for them. There's stuff that you can buy on Amazon. It's not very strong. I think stuff we used to use a couple of years ago had like 20,000 live cultures of good bacteria for their stomach to be healthy and strong. This stuff has 3.5 billion live cultures of good bacteria. So what we'll do is we'll mix this with water, and we take the water system down. We put everybody a bowl, and I water out a gallon jugs. Doesn't that sound like a lot of fun? Anyway, this is the best probiotic in the world. So like I say, I will give Mellanie that information also, as well as that. If you saw up here on the table, I also had a package of cornstarch. Now, a lot of people use cornstarch to clean their rabbits. I'll kind of demonstrate here in a minute, and I'm going to pull a little one out that I was not able to send and actually show you what a hernia looks like. So for y'all that are going to pick up your meat pens from a breeder, no matter who it is, you should always check these bunnies out.
Hey, Mellanie. The video, okay, it just came back, and we did have a couple questions. Okay. I think when you're messaging the chat, the video goes away.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
We want to do questions.
Another.
First.
I think we wanted to see the probiotic again. I saw that one. So once we get done looking at our rabbit, we'll show the probiotic again.
Okay. And then the next question was, where can you purchase the cage slab/pad for the bottom of the cage?
Okay. You can get those from the same people that build the cages. Barrington Show Supplies. I will have them here at KW Cages of Texas, Texas Custom Cages in Bowling. And you can also order a lot of this stuff online, but it does get kind of expensive with the shipping.
Thank you.
You bet.
All
So
right.
you ready to see the bunny? All right. Okay, so when you go pick up your rabbits from your breeder, the breeder should have already checked them all for disqualifications. We're all human. They do slip through an occasional disqualification here and there. We try our best to not ever have them. Always check the ears, make sure there's no big bite marks. Anything that takes away from the general appearance of a natural ear is a disqualification. But you want to look in your rabbit's eyes, make sure they're clear, they're not cloudy. If you see a cloudy eye, that bunny is probably blind. Okay, so now you're going to turn your rabbit over and you're going to check for disqualifications. When you check their teeth, you want to make sure there's no nasal discharge in the nose. That's a sign of a respiratory illness. You don't want that. Then you want to check their teeth. And when you check their teeth, the top teeth should overlap the bottom teeth. The bottom should never be in front of the top. Okay, so they've always got to overlap. You want to check when you do this, look for little bumps in the corners of their mouth. That would be an abscess in their mouth. You want to make sure they're free of that. Now that you've checked their teeth, you want to check for straight legs. Just kind of pull them and you can see them that they're straight, not crooked. You don't want a rabbit that their back legs go as far as apart as they can possibly be. They should be straight, just like this little guy. Check toenails. If you have cats, stick your foot in the bottom of their paw and those claws come out. You want to count 5 toenails on each foot and 4 on the back foot and make sure. Now, when you're checking for a hernia, start up here, or a hernia or an abscess below his chin, and rub your thumb all the way down through his body, all the way to his tail head. When you pull, well, I'll get to that now. I don't know if you can, is it showing up on your phone?
Not quite. Let me see if I can angle it. There we go.
Okay, you can see a bump right here. And it's quite a bit bigger now than what it was. It's about the size, well, it's way bigger than the silver dollar now. A week ago, it was the size of your thumbnail.
I would say probably a golf ball right
Yeah,
now.
it's about the size of a golf ball. Not that far big coming out of his body, but it's every bit of that big around. Check for hernias. They can happen. Okay, when you get to the back end of your rabbit, you want to make sure that there's no sign of vent disease around the genital area. Everything looks good, and you want to pull on that tail a little bit. If you feel a bump in that tail, they've had a broke tail. That is also a disqualification. That tail should be straight. It shouldn't be curved. It should be just as straight as an arrow. Okay, now you've checked your rabbits over. So if this one doesn't have a hernia, this little bunny's good to go. Put him in your carrying cage and grab your next one and check your rabbits out. On our next video, what we'll do is we'll go over posing, working fur, teaching your rabbit to pose, how to carry them, basic stuff to not harm your rabbit. Is there any questions on checking disqualifications?
Geri, do you see any questions in the chat box?
No, not yet.
Okay. So no questions so far.
That's easy enough. Okay, so I'm going to put this little guy back.
Okay, while he's doing that, I'll show y'all the probiotic again. Okay, and it's this Rabbit Enhance Pro Defend. Okay.
That, if you look up online on that Pro Defend, the name of the company is called Row Nutrition, and their website is very, very easy to follow, very easy to get stuff ordered. You can do every bit of it online. This stuff is, I want to say it for a jar like that's about $23, and you won't spend, that jar will last you several years if you're just doing meat pens. but it is a very good probiotic. Other equipment that is a necessary thing to have to me is get you a lab coat, some kind of long sleeve denim shirt or an apron like this. These are like a Kevlar sleeve. And I've got scars. Mellanie can tell you, she can see a lot better, but I've got scars on my arms from these rabbits like you wouldn't believe. For the young ladies, these are not very pretty. They're not very stylish. Most of them come in this ugly color of yellow, but they will save you from walking back to the house with a blood trail following you. They are very good for scratch prevention, and they are really good to have. These also can be bought pretty much anywhere. When you do have, also find you a table somewhere where you can set your rabbits up, practice posing them with a piece of carpet. At Home Depot or Lowe's, they sell these squares that are about 2 foot by 2.5 foot of carpet. Get you a piece of carpet to set the rabbits up. That's a must, because you have to work with these rabbits. You have to work their fur, and they don't need to be scratching on a slick surface. They're liable to sprain a leg, sprain a foot, and then you've got an injured animal.
Now, is there a specific size of table or height of table they need to practice
Whatever
with?
fits them is the best thing in the world.
Okay.
I mean, I like them a little higher than waist high. That way you've got everything right here in front of you. You're not bent over the whole time, or you're not reaching up high where you really can't control the rabbit.
All right, y'all. Do y'all have any other questions at this time?
There's none in the chat right now, but if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat box.
So while they're thinking of their questions, what's the best way to get their rabbits settled in once they get home? And then how do they start working with them before they worry about posing them for show?
That's where the probiotics comes in, and you feed hay. I like this straw hay. All this is wheat straw. It is a coarser roughage than coastal. You never want to feed alfalfa to these rabbits for extra protein. The feed that you feed them is going to be enough protein. We feed this because it's a coarser roughage and the probiotics at the same time. We'll do that for about 4 or 5 days. What this does is, rabbits are a prey animal. They stress very easy. And when they stress, they'll get an inflamed bowel, okay? Their stomach expands, it gets blocked up with feed. So this extra roughage and that probiotic helps everything flow through their body a lot better. Now, at our next session, we'll go over working with the rabbits. When you get your rabbits home, I wouldn't mess with them for 4 or 5 days, okay? I'd let them get used to their new environment. You're probably going to be validating these rabbits within 4 or 5 days. So that's going to be another thing of stress for them. So just when you get them home, put them in your cage, leave them alone, and just make sure they've got plenty of fresh feed and fresh water, and they will be good to go.
And then
Also, one other thing. If you're buying your meat pens, try to get the same feed that your breeder is feeding. Most of us will allow y'all to buy feed from us. That way the rabbits stay on the same feed. If you try to change them cold turkey, like from my feed to something new, those rabbits are, it's going to taste different to them. They're going to stop growing for about 3-4 days until they get used to that feed. They're not going to eat it as much. So if you feed the same thing that your breeder is feeding, you're steps ahead. They're going to slow down because they're going to stress a little, but within a day, they're going to start eating like they normally have been. So always try to get feed from your breeder when you go pick up rabbits, or at least see what brand they're feeding, and see if you don't want to buy it from them, see if you can get it at home.
And then do you want to talk a little bit about validation and what they should do in preparation for validation and what they need to pay attention to?
Okay, validations. When you go to validation, of course, you should have a carrying cage. Always go to validation. Carry I know we do this in Bastrop because I usually always do the tagging. We put a puppy pad down for every family. You have to practice biosecurity even for the rabbits. There's diseases out there that can be spread on a piece of carpet when you've got rabbits from 20 different breeders. One of them may have rabbits that are not healthy. You could contaminate everybody else. So what we do here in Bastrop, we put a fresh puppy pad down on a table between every family. I put on rubber gloves. We take the tattoo pliers, we dunk them in a sterile solution and to sanitize them between every single family. So it's more safety precautions for your rabbits, okay? This year with the COVID, everybody is not going to be so close. Spread out. Don't let a friend that's in your class come up to you that's also showing rabbits and pet your bunnies. Nobody else needs to touch your rabbits but you and your family, and that's all that needs to touch them. Okay, that will give you good biosecurity for your bunnies.
And then, let's see, we had a couple of questions pop up. So someone asked about, what about feeding Timothy hay?
Timothy is okay, but it's very high in protein. So Timothy is easy to find. You can get it at like Tractor Supply. We've got these flies that are going crazy in the barn right now. But yeah, Timothy is okay. A Timothy orchard grass would probably be better. Okay, where it's not straight Timothy.
And then another question was, how do you transition to a new feed?
You mix it half and half. Then you do it for about 4 or 5 days. Okay, they'll taste their feed and the new feed. If you're going to transition them, I know I have the good old hefty bags. That's what they're here for. If somebody's going to change feed, I'll give them 2 of these baggies full of feed to change them over. So that's how you do it. Just mix it half and half for about 3 or 4 days, and that should be enough.
All right, what other questions do y'all have?
And the flies are back.
And then selection. So how do you go about selecting your animals for show, and then what do you take to the show?
Okay. That is something that I'll go over it kind of quick. We were going to touch that really on the next one. But when you're looking at meat pens, you're looking for a set of triplets. Okay. You want 3 bunnies that are exactly the same. Now, it is very hard to come up with 3 bunnies. When my daughter we showed here in Bastrop, and we went to Houston every year because we raised our own. we would probably have between 70 and 90 bunnies a year just for Bastrop and Houston, because they were a day apart. We had a lot to pick from. I don't think we had one year where we had 3 bunnies that were absolutely identical. Usually, most people buy, when they come here and buy meat pens from me, they pick up pens of 4 or 5 or 6. Okay, they should always be litter mates. So when that way, genetically, your rabbits are the same. You've always got 2 that will match up almost identical. The trick is finding that 3rd bunny that is the same. That's why a lot of people will buy an extra pen so they have an extra option when it is time to pick them. But you're looking, what any judge is looking for, they're looking for thickness of shoulder. Okay, they don't want length in that shoulder. They want a good, strong shoulder that is a short shoulder. And that way, every bunny, when a judge runs his hand, let me get this little guy out of here. Okay, when a judge looks at these rabbits and he's got them posed, he wants to feel here in the shoulder, through that midsection, which is right around the ribs. And then when you get to the loin, that loin should be full, right there behind the ribs, all the way through the hindquarter section, which is the back leg. And it should be just as wide in the front as it should be just as wide in the back as it is the front. That is it's a hard thing to do. The good rabbits will have a good full loin. A lot of times they will have a small taper, and it can only be 1/8 of an inch. But when a judge rubs his hands over their body, he'll feel it. Now, you always have to have a gradual taper. Mellanie, take a picture from this angle, from over his top. So right here at the shoulder, it should always get wider as you go, and then curl around the back end. You can see how this rabbit gets wider as he goes right from behind the shoulder. And that's what you're looking for. A rabbit that's not posed correctly has got a small taper, but you're gonna see a lot of faults this way because he's not properly posed. Okay, when you pose them and kind of bunch them up a little bit, you're going to see the taper that is desirable. Now, most breeders, if, say Jim for an example, young Jim calls me and wants a pen of rabbits. I have a list of people that have ordered rabbits from me. Say he calls the week before the show or the validation, he's at the very back end of the list. He's going to come in here, see all these bunnies in these cages and say, okay, I want to start picking. I don't do it that way. People that ordered early and got me their deposits earliest, they get first choice. Okay. Now we deal with a lot of rabbits here, and the way I do it, I take my list. I'll rank every pen on how good I think they are, and they'll get the best rabbits that way. So if you're new to this, find you a breeder, call and make arrangements with him early, get on their list, do whatever they ask, if they want a deposit, if they don't want a deposit, but get on a breeder's list early. Both of our shows are in March, okay? Sometimes right before the 1st of March, we're always around the 1st of March. We breed for these rabbits around Thanksgiving. If young Jim wants a pen of rabbits, Thanksgiving is less than 2 months away. They should be ordering now, okay? The way to find breeders, there is several breeders lists. If you can find them on Facebook, on social media. You can Google meat pen rabbits in Texas. You can also, hang on a second, I got to sneeze. This fur is getting to me. Okay, I got lost urge. There is a breeder list. If you'll Google or get on Facebook, the Texas Californian Rabbit Specialty page, there is a breeder listing for meat pens. These are members that show Californians on the ARVA tables, or they're accredited breeders. These are guys that we know that are quality breeders and that take care of our youngsters, that are not just a flash pan and trying to make money. They're trying to make very good quality animals and trying to take care of our youth for the shows. So that is a very good list, and that's the only list that I know. Every county has a list of breeders that they have a breeder list. So, and most of those guys are very reputable. Okay, so you can call your county agent, or you can Google or get on Facebook and search around. And a lot of times I've never tried it, but I imagine you could put up, you could search Californian meat pens or Californian rabbits on Facebook, and I'm sure several will come up.
So usually they're pretty easy to find.
Yeah, we're all pretty easy to find. But yeah, order now. Like Lee County, you have to raise your own. If you need brood stock, you need to get it right after your show. In the spring is when the top breeders have brood stock available. Trying to do it this time of year is near impossible to find good quality. If you've got some breeders like myself that are selling breed stock right now, it's stuff that they really don't want. They don't want to keep, okay? It's just, for me, I won't sell breeders this time of year because I've kept everything alive through the summer. That's what I've picked out to carry my herd through the majority of the year to raise meat pens. So I only sell breeders from the end of March through about mid-May, and then we're done. I've sold out by then. So if you're raising your own, like Lee County does, and you don't want to go buy new brood stock, feed your meat pens that you just got through showing out, feed them longer. Look at them around the 1st of June and see what they've turned into, and look at them and evaluate their body, and yes, I like this, or no, I don't. Okay, and that will save you a bunch of money and a bunch of time. Hopefully your meat pens that you've raised to turn into the brood stock that you need, and that will help you get better.
Okay, and then we had a question. Someone asked if your barn was air conditioned year round.
I wish. No, this barn is, and y'all saw it a while ago, this barn where we sit right now is not insulated. And so we doubled the size of this barn. We insulated the second half, and it's actually made over here cooler. But you can see in the distance, there actually is rabbits in those cages. The only thing in these cages where it's not insulated is this one little guy that I just put in here. It's just too hot with no insulation. I use the big porticools in my big barn, which is my main herd. I've got 6 of those big porticools in it, and it's partially insulated like this building is. But that barn is a lot taller to where that radiant heat doesn't come off the sheet metal. It's close to the rabbits, so we're able to get away with it with just using the portico. But yes, I wish we were air conditioned. Blue Bonnet Electric wishes I was air conditioned, and they get me good enough as it is already. So yeah, I would love an air conditioned barn. It's it would just cost so much money to put in air conditioning in these two buildings, and it's just very expensive to air condition, especially a big herd like this.
So how important does the airflow become if you don't have an air conditioner?
Very, very important. You can't see it, but this barn at the back end has a mister. There's a pipe about 2 foot off the ceiling that shoots a mist all the way across the barn. You can see one of the fans straight ahead. That mist comes in behind it, and it blows that cool mist up under the cages, which helps this barn stay somewhat cooler. You've got to have airflow. This barn, I don't know. We've got so many trees in the property around us. It seems like the wind never blows during the summer. It's very, very hard to get a good, strong breeze. It just doesn't happen in the summertime that often anymore, unless the storm's coming. So you've got to have airflow. Now, this barn, without that mist system, if it's 106 outside, it's blowing 106-degree air. You're moving air, but the rabbits are still very, very uncomfortable. So you have to try to keep them as cool as possible. A lot of people take the 2-liter soda bottles, and after they drank them, they fill them full of water and they put them in the freezer. They'll put them in the cage next to the rabbits, and those rabbits will lay next to that ice bottle all day long, and it helps keep them cool. There's a lot of different ways. I don't show them like the window. Now, there's a window that's 2 foot deep that runs down the entire length of this barn. It looks green because it's got shade cloth over it. That actually helps deter some of that radiant heat and lets air flow through. Shade cloth is a big help. I've got it on both buildings where we have this window running down the side of both of them. So you can't have enough airflow, but if you've got a small operation and you're raising rabbits like you have to in Lee County year round, or even us in Bastrop that are raising breeders year round for the breeder show, don't put a fan this close to them. You need to be about at least 4 foot away. If you put them this close and a fan is blowing them and moving their fur, you're probably going to give your rabbit a respiratory problem. It's going to get sick and then potentially die. So you always want to back away about at least 4 foot from the cage from where your fan's on. But air movement is very, very important. Very important. Even in the wintertime, I have a lot of customers that raise them, like in the stacker cages I talked about earlier. They raise them in their garage during the winter. You've still got to have airflow. So what they'll do is they'll crack the garage door 6 inches to a foot off the ground so fresh air can come in, and they'll put one fan and turn it and angle it towards an opposite wall. That way it keeps air circulating in the garage. So you've got to have good fresh air quality as well. If you're new to it, going to build a barn, the north wall and the west wall, where the bad north wind comes from, those walls need to be completely enclosed. Like this barn, the north wall is there, the west wall is there. That wall and the south wall could be open. That will give you enough airflow, but it won't let that vicious north wind blow on those bunnies the entire time. Excuse me.
Right. And then someone asked, what do you do if your rabbit breaks a toenail?
Most of the time, you don't get to show that bunny. There's not much really you can do. You definitely can't take it to the vet and get a cast put on. A lot of times the toenails will grow back. It just depends on how bad the toenail is broke. If it's broke, you know, very small bit off the end, it'll grow back. If it's broke right at the base of the foot, 50-50 chance it'll grow back or not.
Okay. What other questions do y'all have? Geri, do you see anything else in the chat?
No, nothing in the chat right now.
Okay. I say y'all are welcome to unmute yourselves or type anything in the chat. We're kind of at that point where we need questions from y'all to decide where y'all want to take this.
What protein is better for rabbits to eat?
The wet protein is the best for rabbits to eat.
Depending on what you're going to do for rabbits, what you're going to do with them. Are you talking about for breeders or for meat pens?
Percentage for market. Percentage for market.
For market rabbits?
Yes.
Yeah, between 16 and 18. It's not, 16 is not too high. You definitely want to push these rabbits to grow fast. It doesn't mean 18% is always the best. Depending on the genetics of the rabbits, how they grow. I mean, I know mine, how they grow on 16%. One of the formulas that I feed is 16.5%. They grow very well on it. I also have some genetics in different pools in my rabbits that they grow a little slower. They have more of a show rabbit background than a market rabbit background. So I need to juice them up a little bit. So I'll feed 18%. So I feed two different blends of feed pretty much year round when we've got meat pens going out. But anything between 16 and 18 is very good feed. That will be your ideal. Anything below 16 is not going to have enough protein for a market animal.
And then when you first get your rabbits home, do you free feed them or do you follow a specific ration for them?
They're going to be under a lot of stress. So these little rabbits shouldn't eat more than a cup of feed a day. Okay. Now, I like to feed them a half a cup. I like to slow them down. They're not really going to eat a lot of feed the first 3-4 days after you get them home. They're in a stress mode. They're going to stress a little, so they're not going to eat as much. So you give them that hay and that probiotics, and that will help their stomach stay strong and their appetite. That probiotics does give them an appetite. That good probiotics in their belly with the good bacteria, it makes the world of difference on how they eat right after you get them. So what I like to give them is about a half a cup apiece a day. Put it in the feeder. If it's all gone the next night, and I feed at night, I know some people feed in the mornings, but if it's all gone the next night, then I up it a half a cup. And if it's all gone the next night, then I'll up it another half a cup. You always want feed in front of them. You just don't want, if you put 3 cups of feed in this feeder, it's going to be about this full right here. This is a 5.5-inch feeder. A lot of people use 5.5s or 7.5s, but 3 cups of feed will be about halfway up this big open flat part. You want just enough feed down in the bottom where if they decide to eat some more during the day, it's there. You just don't want to fill this thing completely full. Then all the feed that's up on top and exposed to the air, it's going to get stale like a piece of stale bread. It's like us eating a sandwich with stale bread. It's not going to taste very good. So now you're wasting feed. So you want to put in the amount that you're wanting them to eat every day. But on market rabbits, you always want feed in front of them. Rabbits, most all breeds, they do most of their eating at night. They'll eat some during the day, but most eat everything at night. That's when they're the hungriest.
Okay. What other questions do y'all have?
How long do you have to work with each rabbit?
Takes about 2 minutes of money a day. It doesn't take very long. You remember the little spray bottle that I showed you that I use for Ivermectin? I also keep these around and put water in them. So when you work their fur, put a light mist of water over their fur, rub it back and forth about 3 or 4 times, and then rub it all to the back. It only takes about 2 minutes of money a day. Put them back in their cage, leave them alone. That's all they need. Now I'll show you one thing. All the little young ladies that come here and get their rabbits, I have to tell them all. This is a cute little bunny. You don't want to turn them into pets and pet on them and love on them like this. These are a prey animal. When a judge looks at these rabbits, they're looking for firm, hard flesh. So if you turn him into a pet, he's going to get soft in body condition. So that meat will get softer because he's a lot more gentle. Okay. Of course, you don't want your rabbits wild, but they're all going to try to jump out of your hands. Okay, because they're naturally really skittish. Just don't make them into pets. If you've got to have a pet, wait till after the show, then pick one out and make it a pet. Then it doesn't matter. But this is a no-no. Don't pet them like this on your chest, like this until after the show. When you work with them, put them on your table, pose them, and this little guy hadn't been messed with until today. So he's acting really very, very well. And that right there is pretty much all it is.
Okay. All right. What other questions do y'all have? Miss Geri, is there anything in the chat that we've missed?
There's not. Just a thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule tonight to talk to us. Fantastic information, but no other questions right now.
All right. Well, I think with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. We thank y'all for joining us. And Mr. Jason, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. I know that we learned a lot. If y'all have any other questions, if you'll just send them to either me or Geri in the emails that we've been using to contact you, we'll be sure to get the answers to your questions that come up afterwards. And then we'll also send the recording out so y'all can watch this again. And with that, thanks. And we hope you have a great night.
Thank you for your time. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.